having done with the general components of a mediation session, we move on to more subtle dynamics of the room. Now, unlike a litigation where when you enter a room, you have specific issues that you will fight till the end of the world, in a mediation, you have to be flexible. Now, in a dispute, there are interests, which is basically what your party wants out of the dispute. And second, you have positions, which is basically how your party wants that interest to pan out. Now, the best way to prep this up would be to have two categories of positions. The first ones being the ones that your client is rigid and stringent upon. Now, these positions you're not ready to give up no matter what. The other category of positions, on the other hand, are the ones that are favorable to your client, but you don't want and are willing to give it up if the mediation session is progressing nicely. So this is important to keep the mediation session in progress and to make sure that both the parties appear to be flexible and cooperating in the particular session. Now, one more thing that is very important to understand in a mediation is that you have to be soft on the people but hard on the problem. Now, for example, when you enter a room, you may have a personal leverage over a particular person. For example, you will still be the boss of that particular person after this dispute is done. Now, this might help you and would get you more than what you would be willing to give. But the idea of a mediation is that two parties are coming together and cooperating and coming up with an amicable solution. So you have to understand that you would have to give up these personal leverages and rather approach it with a neutral bias. For example, if you have a problem, you sit on the table and say, okay, so this is the problem. You have this interest, I have this interest. Let's try and find out a solution that is amicable to both the interests and also solves the problem, which is the entire idea of a mediation session. Now, for this, I remember being told the orange story. Now, for example, you have two people and an orange to divide between them. Now, the first method that comes to your mind would be to cut them in half and just distribute it. But what if A wants just the pulp for orange juice and B wants just the peel for making marmalade? So a mediation session makes sure that both the parties get what they want and also solve the problem in the end. Now, in the end, coming to the general demeanor and the dynamics of the room when you're in a session would be to first be flexible. So sometimes it does happen that when you're in a session, you come to a headlock, where both the parties have come to a position where they are not able to give up more than they've already given up. And you cannot move forward, from that. So the ideal way to deal with this particular issue would be to say, okay, we have a problem with this particular issue. Let's do one thing. Let's keep this aside and go on to some other issue which is comparatively easier to deal with. And we'll come back to this particular issue after we've done with that. Now, there are many advantages of this maneuver. First, being sometimes you are not, even if you're not able to get to that particular solution, or even if you're not able to get that solution, it's still a fruitful session because you've agreed upon a lot of points other than that particular solution, which was stopping the entire progress. The second is that sometimes something like this actually makes the other party forgive some of the things that they wanted in the start. So, for example, they were very adamant on something that they wanted in the start for that particular issue, but after seeing that you're giving up a lot for them, they would be more willing to give that up too. So it basically comes down to a very fruitful and a progressing session. The second thing is to be assertive and to be smart about it. Now, the thing you have to understand is that every person in that room is there because they want to make this mediation session work, be it from the mediators to the counsel to the other party. Now, if you think at any point of time that these parties are not able to move forward, or these parties are taking a turn which might divert the entire solution or progress of the session, then it is always ideal to gently point that out. For example, from personal experience, I had once a mediator calling in a private caucus when it was not needed, when both the parties were interacting very nicely. So the ideal way to get out of this situation would be to tell the mediator politely, sir, I don't think we need this particular caucus right now. I think it'll be more advisable at a later point in time. This would ensure that your mediation is moving forward without it be, causing any troubles to the other party, even when sometimes the actions of the other party is actually being detrimental to what you want and what the mediation session should go for. In the end, the main thing, the key term to understand in this, when you sit for a mediation, is to understand that it is not a zero-sum game. You won't win over the other person's loss, whereas both the parties will get what they want and will win. It's just the entire progress of getting to that solution, which is what we call mediation. Thank you.